Hello and
Yes.
welcome to this podcast. Before I start questioning my guest today, and I've been thinking of him for a very long time. He doesn't know this, and I've been thinking if I were to get my guest, who's called Karan by the rest of the world, Karan Amin. Uh, he's been a young achiever and all over the place, and a bubbly, effervescent, crazy guy, as crazy as they get. I've known him for at least 15 years, if not more.
20, I would say.
We work together. And welcome to the show, Karan. You have no clue what a joy this is to get one of my dream guests fulfilled
Thank you
today.
so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be on it.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. Happy to be on it.
Yeah. One of the things that has been running in my head, okay, what should be my first question? Since this is all impromptu, and I generally think of a question when I'm setting up. So one thing that comes to mind that I had a problem when I was a kid. I was never as effervescent as you've always been, but I was very jovial and cracking jokes and funny. Uh, and I thought one of the drawbacks of having that kind of personality was that I was never taken seriously when I was serious about anything. Uh, and it did not mean that I did not think deep or I did not feel very strongly or I was not emotional or I did not have my bad days. It was just that it was my contribution to the world that I'm just making people laugh and happy. But I felt very hurt very often then. Now I do not have those kind of problems, but at least at that point when I was growing up, I thought it was like everybody thought it was fair game to make fun of me because I would not mind it. And they were quite hurtful without understanding the nuance of one can have fun at others without hurting them. So, have you ever faced a time where people don't understand that you can be serious and you are like you have your thing in place? It's not that you are not aware that there is a choice. You choose to be happy and effervescent and let's go do it. Uh, do you think it's a drawback at times?
Of course, I mean, people in general, they when a person is always, on the crazy side or always seeming to be happy or seeming to be full of energy and joy. I mean, people generally, it can happen where it has happened to me as well in my career and in my life in general, where I think people end up taking a person for granted and, they just think that they just assume. I think assumption is a big is the right word to use. They assume that what they are saying is perfectly fine. In fact, this was a conversation I had with my therapist a few years ago, and I felt that in just a few conversations I felt like even if like generally people who have something that they're dealing with in mental health, that's when they approach a therapist. But I feel in general every human being should go to a therapist, because I'll tell you why also. Because and I said this to my therapist, because I was like, when you are on your norm, like a normal person, like on a day-to-day basis, gets up in the morning, gets ready, whatever, goes to work, gets on the bus or goes by train or in some form of transport, you interact with all different kinds of people through your day, and you behave in a certain way, and you say a lot of things, but everything that you say or the way you behave, according to you, it is fine or right. That is your assumption. You have no clue how it is impacting the other person or how the other person is taking it. And therefore, that's why I bring this in, is that, if every person went to a therapist, and not from a therapy kind of this thing, but like just to somebody to listen to your train of thinking and then give you a opinion on it, that when you say this to this kind of person, you could be actually doing this to them, which you're not totally aware of. And I think that's a great, like a thing which everyone, I think, not from a therapy perspective, but just to understand or get clarity on, like, what am I thinking, like, or how am I thinking, or what am I saying to someone, and then just get a, like, and you're getting a, like, literally a stranger's opinion. It's not like you're best friend or someone who's telling you, तू गलत सोच रहा है, which may affect you in a different way.
Yeah, I think you spoken of like a universal need to be understood,
Yes.
uh, to be basic compassion.
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the episodes that happened some time back, one of the guests talked about the art of listening. And trust me, it was one of the better episodes because he listened much better than, like, I am generally praised that I listen well on the podcast at least. But with him, I learned a lot. He was quiet, he gave that space, he tried to understand what was being said. Uh, and it just takes a bit of a pause, actually.
Yes.
I understand where you're coming from. With people like you and me, I think there is one problem that we are this naturally clever guys, the gift of gab, that you want to crack that one little line to make people laugh. Um Very often, I think it is compassion on my part because I try and make people laugh. Uh, and especially in a job like ours, I think I've been blamed for, if you've been working with me, let's go grab a cup of chai. Come on, let's not get serious. They think you're actually not serious.
Yeah.
The idea is because you're not serious, your mind can think of more creative ideas
Of course.
because the space is available.
Yes.
You act glum and as if the world's weight is on your shoulders. I don't think it gets you anywhere.
Yeah.
If at all, we have been part of agencies, and at a time when
I
we
think
were
even in
glum,
those times, like there was like a popular saying which still holds, which is let's sleep over it. Even it works in both ways. Like even the client who takes your listens to your idea, he'll tell you let me sleep over it. And you also, when you're trying to crack an idea and you can't crack it, sometimes you cannot crack it. Whatever you try, you cannot, like you may be putting on your most amazing music in your headphones, or you may be like smoking 10 cigarettes non-stop, but it's not working. You just sleep over it. You wake up with a fresh mind and then look at it all over again. So I think that really helps sometimes in like just pulling the plug and resetting, which is
one
well.
one thing that came connected to this very thing that we're talking about, in a time and space where working with others is very important. Now, I want to contextualize this in workspace also. Uh, we often, being writers, we've always had to work with art directors, and I know some of the award-winning campaigns you've done. I remember you saying that you cracked the art and the other person cracked the copy part of it. Some of your most celebrated campaigns, in fact, were like that. And those were crazy because those were actual works of art. Like the first thing that everybody would see would be the art part of it rather than the writing. And yet, when I saw you guys win that and the way you guys went about it, it was never to till you explained. Nobody knew who cracked what part of it.
Yeah, it was like a
It-
full team thing.
yeah, there was no sense of
Right.
jealousy, competition, any of those things. So my question to you in this, how does one learn to give space? As a professional and as a personal person, how does one, because we are all a little scared and doubtful and fearful about, uh, I think it comes from Darwin that we think survival of the fittest is the only way to be and we are always trying to jump over. But I've seen you make mistakes and come and apologize as happily as you celebrate your victories. And it has happened more than a couple of times. And you've been quite chill about it. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood this, and this is how it is. And in front of 50 people. Now, I find that very amazing because it's a very rare thing. Most of us are very easy to come, we find it easy to come and take the place of pride. But when a joke is on us or we messed up somewhere, we find it very difficult. But how have you incorporated this in your personality? What is it that makes you so fearless about, okay, I made a mistake. So what?
I think it's about like the fact that, like, I mean, you cannot be stuck in that in that moment kind of thing. And I think there's one which I'll tell you is that I try and keep like every day is a new day, literally. So like when one day is over, it's like it's over. Then you got to move on. And I feel like therefore, like many years ago, I abbreviated the word now, and now in like it stands for no other way. You know,
Oh,
you cannot, like, if you're not living in that, like, and therefore you own that moment, or you just make the most of that moment in your day. Also, life in general, life is short, and the pandemic kind of showed us that it is a lot shorter than it can be. And if you're not making the most of every day, then that's fine. you know that day is gone, to make the most of the next day. Yeah. So I think,
wonderful.
therefore, like, even if, like, in situations like this, where if I'm wrong, or like if people are making fun of me and it's turning me gloomy or whatever, it's just, it's in that day, in that moment, in that whatever. Once it passes, the next day is a new start. Like, wake up and, like, go on, get on with it. Also, like
Wow.
I said, like, with the fact that, like, in general, I see, like, life is short. Like it's proven, like I was saying, with the pandemic, you never know when when could be your last day. So, like, if it is not to be, then, like, make the most of your that every day that you have, and
Yeah.
do whatever that makes you happy, and whatever can make other people happy as well.
And there is I got reminded of this app that I have on my phone. It's called WeCroak, WeCroak, and it is not sold to advertisers or any such thing. And it sends you 5 messages, and the message prompt is don't forget you're going to die.
Wow. Yeah.
And when you click it, there opens a quote on the short life we have, and
Yeah.
some amazing quotes.
Yeah.
Like it kind of provokes you in the right way, and it
Yeah.
happens like that guy has programmed it. It doesn't happen before 8 in the morning, at least for us in India. It's a worldwide thing, and it may happen. Two of them will come at one go, or one will come now, one will come in the evening,
Yeah.
or whatever. Like you have no clue, and you are sitting in the middle of a busy meeting or this chat, and suddenly my phone will say, "Don't forget, you're going to die," and it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
And as many times I have read it, it's always a surprise because that split second that takes for you to remember that you have this app on your phone. Before that, that shock is registered. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it brings you back. And it's a very crazy thing. And that guy refuses to sell it. He says, "I don't want advertisers. This is not for all of that."
Of course.
Read about his interview first. And then I said, no, this is an app I must download, and it's a good reminder. And besides which, I love reading quotes. So these quotes are quite. Okay, since you brought up the pandemic and I brought up the topic of this app and death, most of us seem to see death as very negative. Yesterday or day before, one of the quotes that came up was, "Death is the end only if you think the story is about you." And I found it fascinating because, okay, so even if I believe or do not believe the truth of that statement, it provoked me to think then the story is about what and about whom. The first thing it did for me was that it relaxed me completely so that I don't have to worry. If it's not about me, then it doesn't matter if I screw up or if I come out first in some kind of mental race that I keep having. How do you this is now combined with a question I wanted to ask you because you brought up the pandemic. Knowing you, I have never seen you sit still for very long. And not only your own vibe is like that, you charge up the room like that. Positively or negatively, I have no clue. Some people may not like it all the time, but you have that ability to set it on fire. Like you have to respond. Or else you have to be very confident to stay still
Yeah.
because Karan is in the room, so called. So, in the pandemic and with the context of death that we are seeing, how did Karan stay with Karan?
It was, I wasn't alone in the pandemic. I moved back to Bombay, and I was living with my parents. So
Okay.
I guess that did help a lot, both for them as well as for me, to have them around me,
Okay.
because it was just 2 years before the pandemic. I was living in Delhi, and if, like, I actually thought about it during the pandemic, that if I was alone in Delhi, I would have died. Like, I would not have survived it. I would have. There's no way I would have survived it.
Yeah,
And
but having said that, although you were with your parents, there was this restriction of space and
there
time
was
for that.
massive, massive. I mean, after living independently for close to 10 years, I was back home with my parents, and I was like, everyone was stuck. I mean, there was no going out anywhere. So I guess it was fine. It was, I guess, also it just so happened that I got back to a full time job during the pandemic. So I think when you're in a full time job, which is a advertising job, then that is that is taking over your life in a big way. So I think that, and work keeps you busy, keeps your mind occupied, so you find that balance, and it was great. I think I managed it quite well. Obviously, I had my moments of like, I need to get the hell out of here and I want to go somewhere, and I did
True.
manage to go when I went for my birthday. But yeah, in general, it was definitely boxish. In general, I feel life in a city is boxish. It's something where I think in our years of growing up, like, you've seen everybody do the almost more or less the same thing, which is like, you finish college, you either do an MBA, or you don't do an MBA, you end up in a job, or you do the MBA or whatever, and there are some masters and something, and then you end up in a job, and then you work in that job, and then you rent a nice house in the lovely city that you live in. You spend 2 hours a day in traffic, and your every week is the same from every week. There's nothing different. You're going to different nightclubs or different pubs for a beer, and you're meeting the same people or listening to the same music, and it's more or less the same thing every day. And it kind of is boxish. And I felt like, even before the pandemic struck, in fact, I would not have gotten back to a job. Like, I only ended up getting back to a job because you couldn't go anywhere. And travel was off, because just prior to the pandemic, I was on a travel sabbatical. And because there was something there was this book I actually read, and this book was called, and then actually this book got me to quit my previous job that I was in 2018, and the book is called Why We Sleep. The book is by a
Okay.
sleep scientist called Matthew Walker, and the book emphasizes on the importance of sleep, and how, as humans who live in the modern world and in corporate world, and like, we are working all the time and partying all the time, or socializing all the time, or doing all kinds of things all the time, and we are all put sleep as a backseat, and we only sleep when we, like, okay, now it's time for bed, after you've gone through your whole 15-hour day, or like, chal abhi sote hain.
True.
And once I read this book, I realized that I need to quit this job and I need to sleep more. In fact, that's exactly what happened. Is I went, and when generally when you're a senior enough in an ad agency or in any job, and you go to your boss and say, I'd like to resign. The first response you get from your seniors would be, "Kidhar ja raha hai? Where are you joining? Like, you're leaving us, and where are you going? Who's hired you?" And I'm like, "मैं सोने जा रहा हूँ." I'm not going to any agency. I'm going to sleep. And they were like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "No, I'm serious. I read this book." And that, like, in the basics of that book is that from the time a person is born, okay, it's insane. The like, once you read the book, like, from the time you are born, you are supposed to be sleeping a minimum of 8 hours a day. Okay, even one day you miss that 8 hours, you increase your chances of a plethora of diseases, okay, which go from cancers to Alzheimer's to the works. Even one day, even one day you miss. Now, after working in advertising for 20 years, I'm like, boss, I must have missed 5 years only of sleeping. Like, honestly. So I obviously have a major backlog, okay, and there's no way I can solve this backlog if I continue working the way I'm working. Even if
Yes.
I bring it down to fixed 8 hours a day, I will still not meet the backlog, because then I will have a social life and falana dikna. So unless I become a hermit where I check into like some monastery, it ain't gonna happen. And it's crazy. The book explains everything from like the effects of coffee on like your sleep, the effects of people smoke pot, or you do like all other kinds of substances, or alcohol, or like everything that you do or you manifest into your life, how that affects your sleep, and how it affects the different things in your brain which help you get to sleep or not get to sleep. And I think that was a big shift that happened for me mentally, was that I want to sleep 8 hours a day, come what may. If I have to make a few thousands less, I will make those thousands or lakhs also less, but I will sleep my 8 hours. 8 hours is important. Not just for me, but even for you, you know.
Yeah, yeah, all
And
of us.
so I literally became a sleep advocate. And I guess after that's why somebody asked me like, so why don't you go on like these cool dates now that you're on a dating app? I'm like, I prefer a lunch date because then at night I can sleep on time.
Yeah. No, in fact, this reminds me. I Around 10 years back, I started working on my own. People were working from home during the pandemic. I've been doing this for 10 years now,
Yeah,
and surprisingly, I had my reasons at those times to make a decision like that. But the fun part was that I realized that I had told them after 10 I do not pick up calls. So initially they were all worked up because the bosses understood, but the youngsters were what
yeah.
25, 20 to say 30 age group. They said, and everybody used to call sir, although I hated it, but they were like, sir, phone nahi utate raat ko, sir, phone nahi utate. But I was clear. I said anything before 10 and
Yeah,
before 9 when you reach your office, you will have got the copy.
yeah,
You wouldn't have started your day, but you would have received it in your mail. You don't bother. I was working for event agencies and they had crazy hours, and I realized it was difficult to match up to their needs. Once they got used to it, they used to promise each other that okay, Bunty is going to deliver first thing before you come. Don't worry, you just give it to him, but you call him before 10 in the night. And in fact, because the impact was such, I learned from my own deeds. It was like I simply didn't have time. So not that I went to sleep at 10, but I decided not to pick up work calls after 10
yeah.
because it became crazy. I couldn't manage everything else that I was doing at that point of time. And seeing them relax that I would deliver gave me the confidence, look, one can work this way. And now that we are senior 20, 25 years in the industry, we can actually throw our weight around and demand this. You're not a
But I
newcomer.
think it shouldn't be about throwing your weight around. It should be almost
Uh,
like a norm, you
no,
know.
this was more, yeah, true. This was more incidentally, if you weren't having that kind of talent that you have, they wouldn't buy into your version.
No, no. Every place I've worked in, I'm like at their mercy.
Yeah. So that is something that you need to be clear of what is important to you. Maybe we were younger earlier and brash, and I think when you're younger, you think nothing is ever going to happen to
That's
you.
why,
Just
like,
start it.
now even when I decided to start my own company, I was in this zone where I want to be able to, give not just myself, but even if I hire people and the people I work with, they should be given sufficient amount of time to create whatever they want to create. Like if they are going to tell me they need 3 days, then I will tell the client it needs 4 days. If you want someone to do it in one day, please find someone else. I will not kill someone for a poster or a social media post. You know, so that's one thing. And also, like in general, I wanted people to be able to sleep better. I wanted people to travel better or have more chance for living your life.
Yeah.
Therefore, like one thing which I try to do is that, and I've always believed in it, is to give a Monday off. So at my company, whenever, I mean, I have few employees, but yeah, Monday is technically off. Like, I try and not like they don't work on a Monday. Monday is a day for training. It's a day where you should spend some time to enhance the skills that you have or learn something new so that you can, enhance, become like learn more, become a better person, or learn something new related to your job so that you can do a better job at what you're already doing. And I feel that day is required for that. Also, I chose Monday because in general everybody hates Monday, not just us. Even the clients hate Monday. Nobody in general wants to go to work on a Monday. And if Monday is off, then technically every weekend
People
is a
have
long
to.
weekend. So you're not bunking work to get a long weekend.
Yeah, that is quite awesome because I had this thing when I used to wear formals, funnily enough, not formals in a way that people wear my shirt. This was always out, but I used to wear formal clothes. So I always decided that I would wear this jeans on a Monday because people were this about Fridays. I said, Friday, I'm anyway happy. I can wear ties and go. Although I hated ties all my life, and I still do. But I was like, कि Friday में क्यों चाहिए dressing? Friday तो
Yeah.
already sorted है. It is Monday that requires that thing. And what a wonderful thing that you're doing. Uh,
And in that essence, the big thing which I feel is a shift that should happen, across workplaces as well as in people's psychological behavior or thinking, is that this thing which I am striving for is that, in whenever we've been in jobs, or anyone in jobs, not just advertising, maybe you as a lawyer, as a CA, as some engineer, but in all our jobs, whatever we work, we are always, trying to achieve work-life balance. And I feel there is a big mistake over there. There needs to be a shift in the thinking, because I am working so that I can live better. I am not living so that I can work better. Right?
True.
So therefore, you don't need to be seeking work-life balance. You should be seeking life-work balance. We need to be putting life before work. And therefore, when you put life before work, you will be doing your work, but you will have be making time for your life. You will not be missing your, child's second birthday because you need to be in an office meeting. You need to not
Absolutely.
miss your mother's 60th birthday because you have to go for some shoot or you have to go for some outstation workshop, and those are the things that, which will get people to appreciate and enjoy their jobs a lot more. They will be able to perform that much better in their jobs because they'll be like, this company allows me to enjoy the parts of my life that have massive meaning to me. And therefore, people should really now strive for life work balance.
True. Um, right. I need to think on that because I think I may have meshed both of them equally well, considering that I don't know where one begins and the other end. The funda that I have applied in my life is that when I do not want to do it, like this morning, I knew that I had to connect with you at 12, and I was supposed to start work at around 8, and I landed up doing some editing on my earlier video that I've shot for the podcast and learning a few things about Zoom that I didn't know, and I enjoyed it so much that I kept pushing that work, and then suddenly I realized, look, I have to send it. I promised first thing in the morning. It's already 11, and Karan has already sent me a message that hello, are we connecting at 12? But just that space, I was not worked up about it. I knew that it had to be done. That just mental space that I created, like you deserve it. It's okay. If
Yeah.
one day you break your promise about not sending it, and you know that it is a Sunday and you're working on a Sunday, so you need to give yourself those uh, little spaces of the mind if you want to go grab a cup of tea or chat with a friend, or even while your time, like my most mindless activity is Candy Crush. My daughter laughs on me because I can fail at the same level for 4 months and not mind it. It's as mindless as that. I just go on playing it, playing it, playing it till Facebook decides कि यार इसको अभी बोलते हैं, जरा next level पे जा. So it clears me, and on that day I play a lot more, like 10, 12, 15 games, so that I've reached a point where again I'm stuck at the next hard level.
At
But
least
it
you're
is
playing a
mindless.
game which is slightly evolved as Candy Crush. I play Spider Solitaire.
Ah, yeah, because it is there is no rush to finish the level. Of course, I get worked up after 10, 12, 15, 20 times it has rejected me. I'm saying, hello, just let me go through this level. It's not even about winning. I am bored of the same level. But I can go on for a couple of months. Like it is that bad. Uh, Not the ideal way to live. Sometimes I think there could be more mindful pursuits, but well, that's the way it is.
But at least
One question,
what is interesting is that you're staying stuck on that level versus what somebody else would have done is most people would have done is shopped or bought, like swiped a card and bought those coins or those candies to move forward to the next level. And that's actually one very, very interesting thing about, how mobile gaming has gone through the roof, and it's crazy about the psychology of a gamer, because like, if you see back in the day when, like, in the 90s or the 80s when there were video games, those
yeah,
games were not like, you can't swipe your card in that. You're putting a cartridge in some system which is connected to your TV and you're playing the game. If you can't go forward, you're screwed. You have to do your best to go
yeah,
forward. There's no other way to go forward, you know It's actually a beautiful thing because the psychology of the human has changed so drastically, because with all most games where you are swiping your card to buy something, to advance in the game or get more lives in the game or do whatever in the game, or in Candy Crush where you're getting these coins or whatever. It's this insane thing that you are actually spending my real money to buy fake money.
True, true. I didn't think of that because to me, I'm very clear. No matter how many ads I see, how many I don't get. Funnily, as an advertising professional, I don't buy into ads too much.
But see, that's also
Unless,
the exact same that's happening with why, like the views based advertising is not like technically, and clients are wondering now why is no one like, buying my product or whatever. And that's what's the mistake they're doing, because the same strategy that they had for TV, which was make a film and put it on TV, when they run the same thing and they put it on YouTube, what they do is by boosting it to get views. So what you're ending up doing is, you, instead of advertising your product, you just ended up advertising your advertising. Somebody is
yeah,
clicking on something and landing up on your ad. Now he has clicked on something. He could have clicked on something and come to your website, but you made him click on something and land up on an ad, which is 3 minutes long and a tearjerker. Like, he's lost. You lost him faster than you
yeah.
can grab him.
That is something I've been thinking. Okay, so I'll ask you an open-ended question about this. Um, I'll give you one funda that I had earlier, doesn't apply to me anymore. I'm as bad an addict to social media as anybody is, and I think I can compete well with quite a few people there. But earlier, I knew that when one came onto the internet, if you knew what you wanted, it was the most wonderful place to be.
Of course,
And if you had no clue what you wanted, then internet
still
could
is.
actually, it was a web. It got
Still
you
is.
in and you couldn't
Still
get
is.
out.
It still is. In fact, now it's gone a lot more deeper than earlier. Like earlier, when you only had search and you were only using search, like, Microsoft search, or like now Google search or Yahoo search, you were just searching and like clicking on articles or things, and that's how you're getting a lot of your information. But now there are so many platforms, like, there's Twitter, there's Reddit, there's, so many platforms where you can have threads and sub threads and all kinds of contributors having all kinds of different opinions and people posting all kinds of information and references, and it's like the rabbit hole has gone so deep that you would have to clone yourself into multiple avatars to, get and literally inseminate all that information. It's an information overburst right now.
It is, it is. I'm also wondering, there are people who told me that there are these apps which tell you they don't allow you to open more than an hour of social media or stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it.
I haven't tried any of that. I've been just like, let's see, let's see. So I have these gaps of popularly, this is called detoxification. I don't give it that name because that effectively means I'm poisoning myself on the other days. So I don't like that idea. But what I try and do is that when it hits me that, look, this is a lot of time that is being wasted, I actually sign out of all the apps.
No, but there's like I use an iPhone, and it was there even on my earlier Android. There are ways to set, like, number of hours of screen time in a day, and you get a notification saying that you have spent so much time on the screen today, instantly giving you a thing that it's time to put the thing on the side.
Yeah.
You know, and
So I do this on my own a bit, in the sense of I make it difficult for me to sign in every time I have to go type my password. There's no easy thing. Facebook is not an app, although it remains on in the browser. I don't know what am I achieving with that now that I look back at that. But every now and then, those are the hurdles I put in my own thing. One thing I wanted to know, because this talk is also been fairly serious throughout, uh, which I was aware of. By the way, I instinctively felt that you would have a lot to contribute in terms of how we think and why we think what we do. As writers, I think we've always been curious about uh, our behavior patterns, not only of consumption but of life itself. What has changed for you? Because you also seem to have this sleep thing is one of the things that you mentioned. What made that shift internally for you? Was there any episode? Was there any event, or was there something that you talked about therapy earlier? I've had a lot of friends talk about it, and I do not know what it really implies. But this space that we need to give ourselves, besides even the therapy part, just the space of Karan being Karan and not being bothered by his screen or his relatives or his family or his friends, and just being alone for a while. What the pandemic really did teach us, that
Yeah.
irrespective if you are with your family, then how much can you talk? Like even for a person like you who came back to his family, initial 2 months you may have talked and talked and talked, and then you are running out of topics. Like you are now caught up with each other's lives, what was happening. Then suddenly you have to be in your room, and then you figure out, oh, this friend is dying, or that friend's relative has COVID, and this and that, and these stupid numbers on the news, and all kinds of things happening. I'm saying within this information or without this information, there is still that sense of isolation that we have, and which is what we are all trying to fill up in various ways. With a person like you, who's always been a social cat of sorts and uh, gregarious to the T, like everything that you want, you want to go out, let's have fun, and uh, even at the cost of your own sleep, like you said. Uh, how and why did the change come about? How did you manage to reach this still point, which otherwise is a difficult journey if you realize there are lot of people who still do not reach here. They may be older to us sometimes. They're still burning with that. Let's do this. Let's be very ambitious and let's go and do these films, and or else let's learn this new thing about Facebook or this or that. And I still keep being pushed by people who are senior to me and say, "अरे इसमें कुछ और नया सीख सकते हैं." And I'm like, hey, hello, I am not working and I'm not working on this particular time, no matter what carrot you give me, because I just cannot take it anymore. There's just too much information already. So, what did Karan do to calm down Karan?
I think the big thing actually happened for me is I would say is that we I mean in 2017 actually I had I had to have a surgery, and it was a quite a life threatening one.
Oh,
I had a general anesthesia surgery post operation. It was a post operative complication which kept me in the
can you
ICU.
speak up a little?
The operation, while the operation was successful, I had a post-operative situation, which is a rare situation, and that kind of kept me in the ICU for 7 days. And
Okay.
after that, like it kind of really changed. I mean, when I came out, and then I was back to a job, and I was again like spending 8 9 hours in a job doing everything that we do in advertising. And I felt like, and it was just around 6 months post that when I picked up that book on sleep. And actually that sleep thing actually is what triggered it all off. I would say is that what am I doing, like where, like I've been working for 20 years, like what have I, like I've achieved a lot, but what have I not achieved? And when I clicked on what have I not achieved, one of the biggest things was travel, and the second biggest thing was sleep. And I realized that these are the two things that I want to chase in my life right now. I mean, I've been working for 15, 20 years, and I've been doing more or less the same thing, even if it's mainline digital, whatever. It's still advertising. It's still staring at that
Right.
90 paper, coming up with ideas, campaign 360, all that, whatever. And I'm like, I can do this, but I want to do now less of this and more of the other things. I want more of travel in my life. I want more of sleep in my life. So I want to make that shift. I want to be able to like see a sunset every day if that's what it takes. You know, I don't want to be at sunset
True.
time staring into a Zoom call when I could be looking at the beautiful sun setting over the sea. So I
True.
think that was actually a real big shift for me, and therefore, like I said, in 2018 when I quit my job, I for the next 2 years I didn't even look for a job. I was not even working. I was just luckily traveling with the savings that I had from my advertising career. And then, like I said, there was pandemic, so one couldn't travel. And because one couldn't travel, I was like, chalo, let's take up a job. At least we can save some money to travel again. And that's the big reason why I got back to a job in 2018, 2020. And yeah, but I guess mentally I made this mental decision that I want to sleep more and I want to travel more. And that's now first priority for me, and work is second priority for me. I'm making, like right now, like I started my business, but I'm making like probably 1/4 of what I made in my last job. But experiences wise, I've had 20 times more experiences in the last 1 year than I would have had being in a full time job.
Yeah.
So I think that's the plus that I'm striving for, is how many more experiences can I have, life experiences can I have, how many more sunsets can I see, and so what if I make less money, as long as I'm, seeing life experiences. I think that's the big shift that I took. What are the number of life experiences that I want to have? What are the kind of life experiences that I want to have? Do I want to be stuck in the same place all my life doing the same thing, or do I want to just go out and see the world and do different things in different places? Because like I said, like like you said from that app, where that app tells you like you're going to die soon. Like after, like and that is another thing that struck me, was that that whatever money someone has saved, like say for example, if I have saved X lakhs, okay, after working for 20 years and barely taking any leaves, you have saved X lakhs. But supposing you continue working non-stop and say one day you happen to die and you have now X lakhs that are like just lying there. You did not use them, you know. This
But
thing
let
plays
me
in my
know
mind,
where they are lying.
This thing plays in my mind, which is kidhar leke jayega, that money that you are saving, to kidhar leke jayega. Once you are gone, you cannot take it with you. So you better use it while you are still here. Keep some on the side for an emergency situation, but use an additional amount that you never thought you would use. Splurge on something you would never thought you'd splurge on, because you will have that experience and you will enjoy it for that moment. Because you're not going to take it anywhere with you.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that we are having this chat today. I'm gladder than even what I was when I envisaged that this chat would happen, because a lot of times, considering that the topic that we are talking is about vulnerability and values, and it's just seen as boring and impractical, but here you are, a successful person. In fact, if I remember, in the last 2 years, you were featured among the top 40 something youngest achievers, and all those things were happening. And here you are talking about watching a sunset.
Yeah.
And just what is it that is priceless, honestly?
Yes.
And it kind of puts in perspective for so many of them who are going to watch, who know both of us. And we have, I think, dozens of common contacts everywhere. We work together for a long while. And I think they wouldn't have seen this side of you, as I am amazed to see. And I'm thinking, no, my gut feel was right. करण को पकड़ते हैं और ये पॉडकास्ट करते हैं. There are so many subtle values that come up here, of pausing, of kindness to oneself, to listen what the body is saying, and how to slow down. One thing I loved throughout whatever your sharings were was the fact that you are not only giving this to yourself, people who started working with you, you also decided to share and give the same leeway, same freedom, same sense of liberation, if I were to call it that. Because we are bonded by our own sense of importance so often. It's very difficult, and very often I'll end up saying to a lot of my friends who go through bad times that the best thing to happen to you, Karan, was that you were in the ICU, because no matter how difficult it was, I think this is so much more.
Yeah, I mean,
fuller.
if life gives you a second chance at life, then should you go back to living the same life, or should you try a different life?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question I had, which played out in my mind. And I think it's like, one of my favorite films from like favorite films ever is Shawshank Redemption. And then if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, in that guy, after spending donkey's years in jail, okay, being the smartass that he is, and he robs the jailer of his millions of dollars. Okay. Now, after robbing him of millions of dollars, and he knows he's going to get out there and be a filthy rich guy with this scammed money, he could have gone and bought a swanky apartment in New York and lived like a don. But he chooses to go to one small remote town in
Yeah.
Mexico called Ziunataweneo, something like that, which nobody even knows where the hell that is. Go to some really obscure place and live with
Your dream life.
sunset, live with the most beautiful, beach or whatever. So I think it's also about finding that one thing in life that if you had more of, it would make you happy. And I refuse to believe that if somebody says that I make 100 TVCs in a year, that will make me happy. You know?
Yeah. I had this chat with my daughter, who's a teen now, and in the next couple of years, she's got to take a decision on what path or what career path she should look at. And she's been talking to me very often. And Dad, what do you think I should do? And the other day, I told her the one thing: if you become clear that it's not success that you are after, it's happiness.
Yes.
So first you clear the cobweb from your mind that if you are successful, if you live abroad or if you're now, because it's a very, the new norm is that every young person wants to go abroad or study or work there or live there, whatever their reasons, and they have capabilities, and I'm sure there is a better life somewhere. But better needs to be defined better.
Exactly. See, just like when you were telling, when we started and you said, that you've known me for so many years and I've achieved so much and blah, 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 blah. And, I've been this under 40 this and that and won this award and that award. But to me, that is not success, And I wrote a post many years ago on Instagram as a quote, which is, you're not successful until you find success in what you want success in.
True.
Awards, our recognition, all these things, the world may see me as this guy is the most successful guy. But am I thinking, according to me, I am not successful because I have not achieved the things I want to achieve. Those things may not be work related, may not be income related, may not be, whatever else related. So, if you are looking, therefore don't seek success. You seek, like you're saying as well, you seek happiness. Because happiness is more valuable than success.
It is.
If you are really happy, you are successful.
Yeah, already.
You could be really successful, but you may not be happy.
And which is the tragedy, because this demarcation needs to be in the head before it comes on the ground for all of us.
Of course.
Who would have thought that Karan Amin would be the guest who would have the wisest words and the best one-liners? So I can definitely understand. I think we are giving to that in every situation. Thank you for joining me, and I think it's been one of the most pleasurable chats I've had in a long while.
Awesome. I hope you have a great Sunday.
Yes, you too.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Wait. Yes.